Hey guys, it's Christine Van Gyn here with the Canadian Constitution Foundation. I am here in beautiful Quebec City, and I am here to attend as accredited media the Conservative Party convention. What I'm looking forward to at this convention is talking to people about my new book, Pandemic Panic, which is coming out this October. You can pre-register to order it on Amazon. And I'm also looking forward to chatting with people about some of the policy resolutions that we can expect to see at this convention. The number one issue that I'm concerned with, which I know a lot of you are concerned with, is freedom of expression. So what types of policies are going to be proposed on that topic? I'm on my way back to the convention center now in Quebec City. It's almost time for the leader of the opposition, Pierre, to give his speech to all the delegates. Really looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
My husband, mon mari, et notre prochain ministre du Canada, Pierre.
Now, we don't know when that election will be, but when it comes, Canadians will have only two options. A common-sense conservative government that frees hardworking people to earn powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods, or a reckless coalition of Trudeau and the NDP that punishes your work, takes your money, taxes your food, doubles your housing bill, and unleashes crime and chaos in your neighborhood. And just to end the suspense, the budget has not balanced itself.
While the speech from the leader just wrapped up, he spoke for over an hour. It was a long speech with covering a lot of different topics, a lot of attacks on the current government, and a few mentions of my number one issue, which is freedom of expression. Looking forward to heading home now and seeing what happens with the resolutions that will be heading to the plenary tomorrow. Hey guys, so I'm back in my hotel. What I came back to my hotel with is the policy resolutions from the convention. I thought I'd explain how these conventions work and walk through some of the resolutions that stood out to me as interesting. So the way it works is people from different riding associations are sent to the convention as delegates. They are voted on and they get to come as a delegate that gets to vote on different policy resolutions. And the policy resolutions are proposed by different ridings, and they go across a big spectrum of different policy issues, from fiscal to healthcare to freedom of expression to criminal justice, foreign affairs, military, all kinds of different things. And what happens is they have these small policy breakout sessions where they vote on the language of these different resolutions. And once they've settled on that, they vote up or down on the language of the resolution. Then they take it to a large session where all of the delegates who are voting will vote on the resolution to pass it or not. So this is the list of policy resolutions that are currently being discussed in the breakout sessions. Because I am media, I'm not permitted in either the breakout sessions or in the large plenary session. This is so that party members can openly discuss and debate policy ideas and resolutions. So let's just go through this document. I have a few that really stood out to me as interesting that deal with legal issues. So the first one that I thought was really interesting was a resolution about Canadian free and independent press and media. And this is a resolution from Lethbridge, Alberta. And the policy proposal is that the Conservative Party believes in a free and independent Canadian press and media landscape, which follows a clear policy framework that ensures a market free from government and lobby funding. 2, minimizes government intervention and regulation in the market. And 3, protects freedom of speech from government and special interest narratives. Freedom of expression issues are really interesting to me. It seems to me like what prompted this particular resolution is government funding of media outlets, which I have a lot of concerns with, as well as perhaps the changes to the Broadcasting Act, which are designed to have large online platforms pay a certain fee to support mainstream media broadcasting and news reporting. So another resolution that stood out to me is from a riding called Calgary Heritage, and it's called Unfair Hiring Practices. And this resolution says a Conservative government will restore merit in candidates' innovation by directing hiring practices associated with federal research funding away from ideology and instead emphasizing first and foremost supporting and retaining Canada's top research talent, irrespective of personal immutable characteristics. So this is kind of a resolution targeting what seems like affirmative action. Now, affirmative action is something that my colleague Joanna Barron, she's written about Canada's approach to affirmative action and our Constitution. There are also a number of resolutions about criminal justice in the policy proposals for this convention that I thought were interesting. There's several about firearms, and there's one on bail reform. Specifically, this is a resolution from Carleton, and it says, the Conservative Party believes that Canadian safety should be protected by keeping dangerous offenders behind bars while awaiting trial, rather than amongst law-abiding society. This requires 1, mandating that a bail applicant's criminal history be revealed at bail hearings, and 2, a much-needed reformation of the counterproductive catch and release bail system. So there's already been a few proposals to reform bail at the federal level. I think that a lot of people have said that these reforms don't go very far. So this is in a concept of keeping repeat violent offenders from receiving bail and committing subsequent offenses. Now, one of the resolutions that's received a lot of attention is from North Okanagan Shuswap, and this is about protecting children's mental and physical health. And the resolution says a Conservative government will protect children by prohibiting life-altering medicinal or surgical interventions on minors under 18 to treat gender confusion or dysphoria, and encourage positive mental and physical support for all Canadians suffering from gender dysphoria and related mental health challenges. So this is a really hot topic right now. That's why it's made its way in. Now, I do have some concerns that this might be outside the scope of the federal government because, after all, healthcare is a provincial responsibility, but we'll see what happens with this resolution and what Pierre, the leader of the party, has to say about it if it gets voted on in plenary. This one has gotten probably the most attention from all the policy resolutions of the convention. There were some other resolutions related to the Canada Health Act and healthcare. There was a resolution from Carlson Trail, Eagle Creek, and this was an interesting resolution to me because it says that it is about palliative care. I have some concerns that there might be an issue of treading into provincial jurisdiction, but one thing that stood out to me was that it called for flexibility for the provinces and territories in the implementation of health services should include a balance of public and private delivery options. Now, I absolutely agree with this. This relates to a big case that we did a few years ago called Cambie surgeries that we were involved in. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court declined to hear this. They've left the decision about whether or not to open Canada's healthcare system to allow for private options when the public system is failing. That is a question that is apparently going to be left for politicians to solve. And it seems like the party members at the Conservative Convention are interested in this issue. Hopefully it will attract the attention of the leader, and maybe some positive changes will come out of that. There was also a really interesting resolution on medical assistance in dying, or MAID. Also, in this resolution is called euthanasia, which is what MAID is. And what this policy proposal says, in principle, the Conservative Party opposes euthanasia and assisted suicide. which is a strong position. The Supreme Court has held that there is a right to that in certain circumstances. Furthermore, we oppose the extension of euthanasia and assisted suicide to minors, to people who are not competent, and people who live with psychological suffering or mental illness, and people who are not terminally ill. And the expansion of medical assistance of dying in Canada to the mentally ill population came out of a Quebec case that the Trudeau government decided not to appeal. The original Supreme Court decision on medical assistance in dying was narrower in scope, but after a lot of outrage about people with mental illness applying for medical assistance in dying, the brakes have been put on that expansion, although the on-the-ground reality is that it's already has been happening in practice. So I think that this resolution is a really important one. I think that the issue of medical assistance in dying raises really more difficult moral questions and difficult legal questions, especially as it's expanded to sort of lack the guardrails we might need to protect people who live with disabilities. So those were the resolutions at the convention that really stood out to me. I'm going to do a little bit of work now at my hotel, and then I'm going to check back in on the convention once all of these resolutions have been voted on in the small sessions, and we will see how things go at the large sessions and what actually passed. So it is Saturday morning. I'm on my way back to the convention after the speech last night. Today, it's starting off with a bagel breakfast, which I'm really looking forward to because I am starving. That's going to be followed by the plenary session, where 2 resolutions are going to be voted on by every delegate at the convention. We're going to find out which of those resolutions that I went through yesterday pass the breakout sessions and which get voted on to pass in the plenary session. Can't wait to have that breakfast and see what happens today. So I'm at the convention now, and I have got the list of resolutions that have made it to the plenary session. There are a number of the resolutions that I outlined for you guys yesterday have made it to the final vote. Let me just go through them and explain which ones are going to get voted on that I thought were interesting. So one of the resolutions that is going to make it to the floor of the plenary session is the resolution on the recognition of freedom of expression. Another one that made it to the floor is the resolution about ideology and workplaces and merit-based hiring practices. Another resolution that is making it to the plenary session and is going to be voted on is that really the one that I said is considered by a lot of people, especially the media, to be controversial. This is the one about sex changes for children. That one is going to attract a lot of attention, I think. Another one that made it to the floor is that resolution on palliative care that has some interesting language in it about recognizing that the provinces need flexibility in allowing for private delivery options. 2 other resolutions that related to healthcare were that resolution on medical assistance in dying and mental illness, another resolution related to domestic vaccine production, as well as guaranteeing the right and affirming the right that Canadians have to refuse vaccines for moral, religious, medical, or other reasons, something that was, of course, a big issue throughout the pandemic. And the last resolution that made it to the floor was that resolution on women's only spaces. So I'm going to head into the convention now and see how that plenary voting goes.
Allison Carter, Kirk Wellington. We worked with multiple EDAs in multiple provinces to bring this policy to convention. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. Freedom of expression is the umbrella term in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms that covers free speech. Undue censorship is active in Canada. Laws need to be repealed to comply with the Charter. Please vote in favor.
So that is it. That is the end of the voting in the plenary at the Conservative Convention. What do you think of these policy resolutions? Did the ones I discussed make it to a vote? What do you think of the outcome of these votes? It's been a really interesting experience attending this convention, covering it for you guys as media. I'd like to come to another convention for maybe a different political party to see what the differences are. I'm sure there are huge differences in the types of resolutions that get proposed and passed. I, of course, would be super curious to make it into those breakout rooms where they debate the language of the resolutions. But of course, media is not permitted into those sessions. I hope you've enjoyed my coverage of the convention. I hope you liked seeing some of the footage of Quebec City too. I have to say, it's such a beautiful and unique place in Canada. I feel really fortunate that I got to come here. And of course, one of my favorite parts of this convention was actually getting to talk to so many interesting people about all kinds of different issues, including about my new book coming out this October, Pandemic Panic. You can order it online at Amazon. Thanks so much for following me along in this journey.